I'd like to call the Peoria Public Schools District 150 Board of Education meeting for October 27th, 2014 to order. Would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Butler. Mrs. Costa. Here. Mr. Crawford. Here. Mr. Bateman. Here. Mrs. Ross. Here. Mr. Floyd.
Here.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer.
Here. Would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to start off our meeting tonight with awards and recognition. We have the recognition of Peoria's finest teacher for this month, Lana.
Good evening. Peoria's Finest Teacher is a monthly recognition that we are sponsoring for those members of PFT that go above and beyond, exemplify best practices in teaching, and/or reach out to the community and parents to be involved in our schools. The teachers in this district work so hard to serve the children and families of Peoria each day, and we want to showcase this positive effort. We want to thank our winner's principal, Ms. Clark, and actually we have an assistant principal here this evening, Mr. Sell, thank you, and any faculty, friends, and family that are here in support of our winner. Our nominator of this month's winner is Travis Bolby, if you'll come up, Travis. And this month's Peoria's Finest Teacher is Tom Hayes at Richwoods High School. Come on up, Tom.
Well, it's really a pleasure to introduce Mr. Hayes to receive this award because he is terrific. I work closely with him as he teaches two sections of the IB higher level history class, the junior level of it, which is the History of the Americas course, and the things he does in there really are amazing. He has the students hone their analytical thinking skills, their scholarly writing skills, and their discussion skills. In fact, I guess last Thursday maybe, he split the class in half, and I had half of the students up in my room to lead an independent discussion / debate regarding who actually won the War of 1812, whether it was us or Great Britain. And I didn't even need to say anything the whole time, although I did, just because I like to hear myself talk. But the kids were just completely independent, and this is merely 2 weeks into the school year, and they were just outstanding. And he does that a lot. Students have a definite leadership role in the class. He simultaneously allows the students a lot of direction, but also academic freedom as well. And the result are just some of the best looking student projects you've ever seen, films and displays, and just this year we had the Boston Massacre musical that a group of kids made that was, it really just amazes me with the technology that, is at their disposal, what kids can do. I mean, the production values are outstanding. If you'd like to see a presentation, I think at our curriculum night this year, we're going to put together a video presentation of a montage of those things. But at any rate, at the end of the day, the students simply learn a lot while they're in there, and it's not just content-oriented stuff, but more importantly, it's the higher order thinking, discussion, and writing skills that will serve the IB students so well when they enter into university upon their graduation. So again, it's just a real pleasure to work with Mr. Hayes.
I would like to echo the sentiments of many of my colleagues who said it must have been a very slow month at Teacher of the Month headquarters. And, thank you, Travis, for the nice words. I'm very lucky. I enjoy what I do for a living, and I know not everybody can say that. So I feel really lucky to do that. District 150, I've been here for 16 years. It's a great place to work, and I've really enjoyed all my time here. I'd like to thank the PFT, the superintendent, and the board for doing this. I nominated somebody last year, and I'm lucky enough to get nominated this year. It's just a really nice thing as a teacher. So thank you for recognizing this award. Mr. Bolby for nominating me and working with him in the IB program, which I think is just, it's something that really sets District 150 apart from other school districts in the area. It's just an outstanding program, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. Ms. Clark and Mr. Sell for, promoting a positive culture in our building, and really the whole administrative team. I mean, who you work with is very important, and from Woodruff to Peoria High to Richwoods, I've just had a lot of great colleagues, and so I'm thankful to all of them, and they just make Richwoods a great place to work. And then finally, I guess I'd like to thank my parents and my family. My parents are very good people who tried to raise me the right way, even though I didn't listen all the time. But they did a really good job, and I'll never forget saying, just do something that you think will make you happy. And I was lucky enough to find my way into teaching, and I've been very happy, so that's good. And then, of course, my family, my wife, and my 2 kids, which, their love and support and patience has been everything. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so. Are they? Mr. Hayes, is your family back there?
They're on their...
Yeah, there they are. I just want to say congratulations also. I had the opportunity to know Tom years ago when my kids were at Woodruff, and I don't think they were ever in his classes, but he was my youngest one's baseball coach, I believe. So I got to see up close and personal how he works with kids and the great job he does with the kids to motivate them. So thank you very much and congratulations. And thank you again to the PFT for doing this, for recognizing. We have so many great employees and teachers in our district that it's great that you have this program that recognizes one a month. Mr. Crawford.
If I just may also make a note, Tom and I have known each other for a long, long time, ran around together as kids and are friends now as adults, and know Monica and his wife and his kids, Bonnie and Walter, so congratulations, Tom, well deserved.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any announcements by board members tonight? Mrs. Ross?
I wanted to just ask for a moment of silence for a person that I had a lot of respect for. We most recently lost in Peoria what I call an icon and a hero to many. He was instrumental in putting Peoria on the map when it came to basketball. He was a good friend of mine. We worked together every summer during the 80s and 90s at the Urban League, and he will be missed greatly. Mr. Wayne McLean was a very good person, and we will miss him greatly. So I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. His family will get lots of prayers going out to Robin and the 2 kids, and we just thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I have a couple. I would just like to say congratulations to Linda Manning, one of our special ed teachers at Jamison. She received last week the WHOI One Classroom at a Time Award, and received $1,000 for use in her classroom to help out her and her kids, and I think it's very well deserved. She was nominated by colleagues, so I think that's really great. The other thing I have is I have a note that Mary Fran Wessler, who's president of 6099, asked me to read tonight. She could not be here. She had planned to, but she got called out of town on family business, so I'm just going to read this real quickly. President Wolfmeyer and Board of Education members, I am pleased to announce that American Federation of Teachers Secretary-Treasurer Ms. Loretta Johnson plans to be in Peoria on Monday, November 10th to meet with Local 6099, the Peoria Federation of Support Staff. Ms. Johnson was supposed to be in September, but had to reschedule at the last minute due to a family emergency. We are pleased to host her visit and are honored that we are the only support staff PSRP local in the country chosen for her to visit. Our executive board will be having lunch with Loretta, and we hope to arrange a visit to one of our schools as well. Our membership will have a chance to meet her, and as a fellow support staff employee and one of only 3 nationally elected officers of the AFT, she will share some of her knowledge with us. I had hoped to be in attendance tonight to share this news with you, but I have been called away on pressing family business. I hope I can count on the support of the school board, district leadership, and Superintendent Lathan to help 6099 do everything we can to make her visit a positive and successful one. Thank you very much, Mary Fran. And I'm sure we'll be able to do this. We had this all set up, I believe, in September when we thought she was coming and was going to visit a couple of schools, so, and then was not able to come at the last moment, so we will be sure to work with Mary Fran and make sure those things happen as she asks us to do those. Any other announcements? Okay, we have district presentations, and we're going to start out tonight with Head Start awareness.
Yes, we're excited to have our partners come on up from Head Start here to share with us information around Head Start. This is Head Start Awareness Month, and so they have a presentation for the board. They are now are in our schools. They're housed at Sterling, and so we're excited about our partnership with Head Start. It's been a long partnership, so very excited about the partnership. A number of Head Start staff are here tonight, so if you want to stand and be recognized also, the entire team.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jaquel Vinson, and I am a Family Services Specialist with PCCEO Head Start. As I was getting ready to prepare my little spiel for this presentation, I kind of giggled to myself because I'm only 27, but I've been affiliated with Head Start for about 20 years. And I say that because in my 3 to 5-year-old days, I was a Head Start student. About 2 years ago, I was a Head Start parent, and I served on the Parent Policy Council as a parent, and now I am a staff member with Head Start. Which I have been in that position for about 1.5 years now. So I've got a little bit of history with Head Start, and I wanted to come here and share some of that history with you. Head Start is this year celebrating our 50-year anniversary of being created, and Early Head Start is celebrating 20 years. We wanted to especially make sure that we came to District 150 to present to you tonight for 2 major reasons. There's a large majority of our students who transition into District 150 schools, and like Dr. Lathan said, District 150 schools house some of our centers. We do, like you said, we have 2 classrooms at Manual, 6 classrooms at Sterling, and we've got 2 Early Head Start classrooms at Harrison School. So you are a large partner in what we do. So who are we? Head Start and Early Head Start is a birth to 5 program who operates under the belief that happy, healthy families means happy, healthy communities. So we work with our families to help them obtain GEDs, employment, and work on the goals that they have set for themselves and their families. We expose them to leadership opportunities like the Parent Policy Council, which is a governing board made up of parents, so that they can advocate for those issues that are most important to them, and also they can advocate for themselves and their children as well as their children's education when they enter into District 150 schools. So that's a little bit about our parents. What we do for our kids, we set the stage for K through 12 education. We implement a creative curriculum which allows kids to learn through play. So while they're singing their ABCs or today's weather is, they're learning those foundational principles that set the stage for that K through 12 education. They're learning their alphabet, their numbers, their weathers. They're also learning how to cooperate, how to sit still and listen for a while, because they're going to be doing that K through 12. What we also do is want to establish that learning is fun and can be fun. We also try to meet our children's health needs by that first 45 days when they hit the chair. We're doing dental exams, we're doing hearing screenings, we're doing vision screenings. We also have on-site Methodist clinics where kids are allowed to come in and get those physicals done, because we do understand that kids learn best when they're healthy. So what we would like to present to you today, what you had on your tables as you came in, is just a little token of our appreciation for working with the community that we share. And we presented to you, that was hugs and kisses from Head Start, so we hope you enjoy that. There was some other little goodies in there. So thank you.
Watch out, Head Start. I'll be looking at her. Just letting you know. All right, just watch out, Miss Burks and Reverend Banks. I'm sorry. Make sure she gets my card, Mr. Copeland.
Thank you very much for your presentation, for your gifts. Are there any comments or questions that board members have? Mr. Cloyd?
Just the number of children that are involved in the program, how many?
670 in Head Start and 111 in early Head Start.
Okay, thank
So
you.
well over 700 children. That's wonderful. Anybody else? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you all for coming tonight, too. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, where am I here? Okay, that brings us to our continuing discussion on the strategic plan. As I thought about this from the last meeting, my thoughts are that what we've got to narrow, and I apologize, Mr. Crawford, we do not have dates for you tonight, even though you request them. I want to get more of a feel for what how we're going to do the meetings so that we know how many we have to, and then decide how many we're going to have, so I don't have dates for you tonight. I did not forget that you asked that. But it seems to me like what we need to come up with before we do anything else is the issues or the areas that we're going to ask the public to give us input in on what their priority is. So at the last meeting, we had started a little bit of a discussion. Mr. Cloyd had come up with some areas, and I want to keep the actual areas themselves simple, not long sentences at this point, or even strategies at this point, but just areas. And see if we can nail that down, and then I think we can talk about how we're going to do the meetings and what we're going to do at those meetings. So I don't know if everybody still has that list or not. I can go through them real quickly if you want. The first one would be academics. One is career and technical education. One is people. One is safety and security, district facilities, supporting services, community relations and communication, financial stewardship, and then potential new forms of organization, which sort of would include just about anything else someone wanted to talk about, whether it's year-round schools, K-8 schools, neighborhood schools. And of course, underneath all of those issues, there's going to be a whole lot of things that we can do within each of those things. And I think that's what we need to find out from the public is what do they, let's just take, for example, safety and security. What does the public think falls under that? I mean, to my mind comes discipline and different things like, and security of the buildings and things. And then as we have the public come up with what falls under each of those areas, to prioritize those for us. So I guess the first thing we need to do is see if we can come to a consensus. Do we need all 9 of these? Do we need additional ones? Do we need different ones? As you look at those. Do I need to go through them again? Mrs. Costick?
They're the same as the ones that are on the handout we had, so this was part of the packet, yeah. It's the same ones. So, no, this week.
No, he gave it to you here.
Yeah.
Just look at the, it says priority. Each one is a priority, but. So I guess what I'm asking the board is this, do we need something added? Are there some of these we don't need, or do we want to change them? And this is strictly for broad areas of discussion. That doesn't mean that these are strategies, that doesn't mean they're even going to be in the final strategic plan, but they're areas for discussion to find out what kind of priority they are for the community. Just read what the priority says, Lynn, because the rest of them are just some of my thoughts.
As long as it's about educating children.
Academics seems to help us well.
Okay.
Isn't the purpose of, I mean, everything we do ought to be done with a purpose towards academics, so I wonder if academics. Huh?
Your mic isn't on, so.
Oh. Everything we do is geared towards academics, so is academics something that just should be
Well, I guess the original was traditional academics, and some of the things that were listed under there originally, some thoughts were under there. You could talk about curriculum, you could talk about data-informed instructional strategies, how much data is used. I don't know, but you're right. I mean, everything needs to be geared towards academics.
And I think I said that at the last meeting, that everything we do should be geared toward what is it going to take to educate our children.
Right.
I don't care what you name it. It should fit within that category. And, I mean, I see where all these could fit within that category of educating children. It's just basically what comes first.
Well, and I think that's what we're going to try and find out. The input we want from the public is we're going to wind up putting this together and deciding what the actual priorities are, but we want to hear from the community what they think the priorities should be. And it just seems to me like under each of these, career and technical education, okay, there are several things you could talk about within that area, and what are the priorities of each of those? You know, like the new pathways to prosperity, WCTC, Skills USA, the trades and apprenticeships, and prioritize some things like that. But I think the idea is to find out from the public under each of these what they think the priorities should be, and what they think should be discussed under that, along with our thoughts.
What should be done to serve that?
Right, to serve that area.
That general area,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking that why didn't we put these suggestions out to the public for, and then add to them their suggestions, and you know, and have them prioritized, so we'll have something to start with, because
And I
these
think-
are good suggestions that
think-
we may take away and add
Right.
to.
And I think that's what we want to do, Mrs. Ross. I think, you know, don't look at the stuff that's written beneath it.
Right, just the
Just look
topics.
at the topics. And Mrs. Cossack actually had this idea at the first committee of the whole, and I've talked to Mr. Bateman since then about the format for the meetings be more working sessions, where we've got, if we stick with these 9, you could split it up so you did 3 each time, and as people come in, we set them at tables, and there will be groups of community people who will look at one of these and thresh out what they think fits under there and what the priorities are for that area. So that's sort of where we're leading to. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, really where my thought process was, and Ms. Wolfmeyer was touching on it, is we, in essence, have 4 meetings. We take these 9 items and we break them into buckets of 3. So we have 3 meetings that, as people arrive, like you said, they'd be broken into teams. Each team would then appoint a spokesperson to do a report out the end of that. And each team would look at all 3 items, prioritize them, put meat on the bone in terms of what they feel those priorities, how those line up in priorities, and then what that encompasses. So what it means to them and how that is important to how they see growth in the education of our students. At the end of, you know, say it takes, we provide those working teams an hour, ballpark, I'm just shooting, you know, ideas here. But at the end of that period, then each team would then report out, here's where their priorities are, here's what their thoughts were, and we would gather that. And at the end of 3 of those sessions, the 4th session then would be a accumulation of all of that. So now that we've kind of heard from the public on their thoughts, we kind of put them in an order from what we heard from the public, and then give them one last shot to say, okay, when you see them all together, based on how you see stuff, how do you line them up now on priorities? And then also look at all the descriptions underneath that. Did we miss anything? Were there any priorities or any thoughts that weren't encompassed in those discussions? So that, you know, at the end of the day, if we don't get the buy-in to the public to support the product, then we have a pretty large hill to climb. If we have their support and their backing, I think it makes it a lot easier to implement and then move forward. So that's kind of a proposal on how to move forward on this. And instead of having people try and deliver their thoughts, you know, from a podium or something like that, we make them working sessions, and that was Ms. Kostick's idea. I just kind of expounded on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that what you sort of envisioned? Because I know you, I thought you were going to say something too, but is that sort of what you envisioned?
Yeah. Actually, with that though, I guess my question would be, with the working sessions, at each group of people, each group that we would have to have someone from the board or somewhere at each of those sessions that could expound on exactly what encompasses these different head topics. Okay? So, I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I guess.
And would we limit the number of people that would be in this group of people?
Well, I was just going to respond to having a board member present or part of each team would be ideal. But if you got overwhelming public response to come, maybe the board members need to float. And that, I would hate to close the door on people. And that, because what we're trying to do is
So we have to
instill
be able
and.
to accommodate the number
Right, no, agree.
of people and then float. I agree.
I also think that whatever we do, we need to have the appropriate people there. As a board member, you know, I don't know the finite information about certain
Sure.
programs that we
Right.
do or administrative procedures. So the right people need to be there, so we're not going back
And
and forth.
are you talking about staff?
Yeah. as
Yeah,
far as
and I
staff
think
is
we could do
concerned.
that. And that's why if we do just 3 subjects at a night, we wouldn't necessarily have to have all staff at all of them. I think.
Just the ones that are related to
Right,
that.
and I think the other thing is, all of these sessions would be open to anyone who wants to come and participate, but we will take and look at some of them and send out special invitations to some entities, like under people, we would certainly want to have our unions there that night to talk about things they have to do with that. There might be a night when we talk about career and technical education, we might want to ask the chamber to be sure and send a couple of people that night, and local government and things like that, and look at it and give invitations to those people, because they can certainly give us input on what they want to see also, but it would be all of them would be open to the general public. You know, make sure that maybe one night, depending on what we're talking about, we make sure we invite some neighborhood associations or some PTOs and make sure the information gets out, at least gets out to those people that what we're talking about on that night might be of interest to them.
I really would like to see, you know, some basic information get out to people first so that we have some input. Because you're not going to get the input from, you know, everyone on at a particular meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because, say, for instance, people mean something different to different people. It means something different to you, to me, and supportive services. I mean, some people will look at that as and add a lot more to supportive services. So, but how it relates, if we could get that information ahead of time and have that information before we have the meetings, it would be very helpful.
I think once we would set the agenda for what topics that we're going to be discussing on that particular night, then we would know ahead of time to contact, you know,
Right.
whoever, you know, the invitees.
Right, and of course, we would be sure and put those lists, like you're talking about, Mrs. Ross, on the Remarkable Times on our website, and we can also ask our media partners to do press releases and some things like that to make sure we get the information out as much as we can to the public of what we're going to do on any given night. So I guess my question is, as you look at these 9 areas, do we want to call any of them something different? Is there something we can call any of them that would be more descriptive of what we think we're looking for? Because we started with these as just, go ahead.
I would think that if we just let them stay as they are, and as we develop, then maybe we can come up with a different title for it.
Okay.
But right now,
Just
leave
leave it
at
this.
the basics.
Okay,
And let's go with that.
okay.
For instance, people. I like human resources so much better than people, because it may not always be, well, I guess it has to be people for it to be human. But I don't know, maybe someone can relate to that a
Well,
little better
and as
than
we
people.
develop these, as we get ready to put out the notices, we can include some of these things underneath them, so people have an idea of
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
Definitely.
Like, under human resources, we're gonna be looking, like, at hiring, performance evaluations, professional development, retention and promotion. That's why I thought that's a good night, that we would want representatives from staff and the unions there for something like that. And so we can certainly include that rather than just the title, so at least people know what we're thinking of when we put those things
You
down.
have to potentially predict what type of people we're going to need for the future.
Right.
Before we can determine what, who's needed.
Sure.
Based on the progression of technology and what the needs are for the future, so.
Okay. Okay, so then we're going to stick with these areas of discussion. And are we in agreement with the type of meeting, with the working session type thing, rather than just someone giving us their input, having us work through it? I mean, it would be wonderful if we had 200 people show up at one of these, and if we have to have 3 groups on one topic, we can certainly do that. We can accommodate everybody who comes. But I sort of like that idea of the working session type thing, because I think we'll get more ideas. Mr. Cloyd?
Yeah. One thing we might want to consider too is that if people have specific issues in terms of goal setting, we could also ask them to provide a written document that would
Sure.
provide useful input. Sometimes if you have a working session like this, it tends to get lost in the shuffle if they have a specific issue that they want to talk about or want to present.
Or if it's not related to what we're doing.
Well, if it is or isn't, but still, if somebody takes the time to put a 1 or 2 page note together that describes something they have a passionate concern about, I think that's valuable input.
And I think when we put these out, we can also let people know that if there's one of these topics that really interests them and they cannot be there, that they can certainly put their thoughts or questions on paper and get them to us, and we will make sure one of the groups gets those, so that the input is there, and that their thoughts and ideas are considered.
Just one other thing, and I think it's really important. We've talked about strategic planning, but this is really goal setting that we're talking about here. So it's the destination we're talking about, not necessarily exactly how you get there in terms of the resources and the actions. That's the real strategy, is how are you going to get to where we set as a goal, what are the resources required, and how do you measure success? Those are the things that really are the sort of nuts and bolts of the strategy. So the more we can talk about goal setting here in this context, I think that helps frame what the expectation of the meeting would be.
Yep.
But you have to have a plan in order to get to a goal.
And I certainly agree, but the purpose of these meetings is not to develop that plan, it's to say, this is the goal. I mean, if we're going to sit down here and do a strategy in terms of the detailed how are we going to get there from here, then 3 meetings with 3 working groups each is never going to get that done.
Well, and I
I
think
don't think we're talking about.
No, I think we're talking
strategies on
about,
getting anywhere.
we're talking about, I think, to me, we're trying to come up with a plan to figure out what the ultimate goals are going to be, not the
Right.
strategies for
Right.
getting there, but we've got to have a plan for figuring out what the goals are. That's where we're at now. And once it's determined, after we get input and it's determined by us what the final goal is, then how you get to that goal is not our job. The how is the administration's job. We tell them where we want to get, and all we're doing right now is trying to find out, ask for input and help on what is it that we want to accomplish, or where do we want to get, what direction do we want to go. So I think we're all on the same page that it's goal setting right now, but we have to have a plan to find out what those goals are, and I think that's what we're working on, so. Okay, so we're down with the type of meeting, and does that sound doable to everyone to do 4 meetings? We'll break it into 3 and then have one final one to sort of wrap things up?
Just quick.
Yes.
I think we have to have a final one to wrap
But-
things up.
If we have a vast number of interested, of community people that are interested, we may have to, so, I mean, we can set it at 4, but let's leave it open to, you know.
Oh, I don't think we're sticking the ground that we
Okay.
can't possibly have
All right,
another one.
that's
If,
all I'm
I
saying.
mean, we'll just sort of
Let's
play it
just-
as we
yeah,
go.
play as we
If
go.
something happens that we need to have two
Yeah.
extra meetings, we can have 2 extra
Yeah,
meetings.
That's all I'm saying.
So,
Just a question too. The form of the meeting, if we have 3 board members present, does that require us to have in effect a full formal board schedule?
Complies with the open meetings,
Yes, so that means that we have to go through this, well, we post it for sure, but we have to go through the same process, which includes public comment period. So if we have 3,
The public would be the people that will be there.
They're not commenting.
no,
Fine,
that's
we
not
got
the
the
same
way
thing.
yes.
So I think we need to
Well,
make a
let's-
decision on that.
Yes, but you could set different limits with respect to that, too. Technically, yes, it would be an open meeting, you have to take roll, and you have to, allow for public comment section.
well, and I mean, I don't have a problem with that. We could take the roll at the beginning and then do our sessions, and at the end, we can still allow, because I don't want to have to limit the number of board members that can be
Right.
there. And I'm not saying that all board members are necessarily going to be able to make all the meetings, because that's almost impossible to set dates. But if most of us can be there for all of them, then I think we should be there, because I think it's a good idea too, depending on how many sessions are that we are sort of floating around and sitting down, not for the whole time, but getting up and moving around. So, but I don't have a problem with at the very end, we can leave time at the end. If people want to stick around and stand up and say something, they can certainly do that.
Just as long as we understand that at the front of the process, and we don't have to do that
Right.
in the midst of that, so.
Okay.
I should say this because I'd have to look at it, but in theory, because it's a committee, your meeting is sort of a committee of the board. This group is in a sense a committee that you've appointed. It's probably subject to the Open Meetings Act, whether you have board members there or not. In other
Okay.
words, this group wouldn't be able to exclude the public. It's your.
Right.
No.
Your thing. So it
Okay.
doesn't really matter how many board members.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay, then I want to talk about, and we had talked about this earlier, so we got the areas of discussion we're going to have, the type of meeting and how many meetings, and then we had talked about going out to different entities and presenting to them the dates that we're going to be meeting and sharing with them what we're going to be, and I guess, is that what we want to do, is share with them then what we're going to be discussing at those meetings on the different dates?
Well, I think the first thing, raise my hand.
Go ahead.
I think the first thing we had talked about was saying, okay, where have we been? So we would need a kind of a review or a summary of the past strategic plan, because that's kind of been the journey we've been on to this point. A report out of, where have we been, what has that brought us to at this point? And then as we look forward, then here's the things we're preparing to discuss with the public. Here's the dates, and openly encourage those organizations' participation. So that's just my thought, because you got to kind of tell them where you've been before you can kind of tell them where you want to go, so.
Well,
Go ahead.
you're correct, and as I was looking at these things here, I'm thinking some of this is where we've been. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, it's all mixed up. Where we've been, high school graduation pipeline, how many number of IB students receiving diplomas and that kind of thing. That's where we've been, so that's part of what this report out is going to be on. So are you suggesting that we do the report out at each one of the 4 meetings?
No,
Or
no.
when do we
This,
do?
this is for, if we could, let's say we would do
Oh,
a
we would go
presentation to
to-
the city council or to the county board or to the chamber. That's what he was talking about.
Okay.
Some of those places,
Well,
or
you must have more
Or
than
the
an hour.
union.
the unions,
or,
yeah, whatever.
ICC, Bradley, talked to, their,
Pretty much just giving them an idea of what we're doing, what we're trying to do, what we're gonna do with the public and encouraging them to participate.
absolutely.
So the next question is, this is my own opinion, I think board members should try and do some of these presentations. So I'll be looking for volunteers amongst all of us, and if we find enough, then we'll ask everybody to do one. And we would put a presentation together that we would all agree on.
I
And
was gonna say, we'd all be speaking the same.
right, we would
language.
put one presentation together,
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, and then that's what we would do, absolutely. It has to be the same message from all of us.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So for the next meeting, the first meeting in November, we'll try and come up with some dates. Do you want to do them fairly quickly, like one a week after the first of the year and get them all done? Do you think that's doable? I mean, we don't all have to be at all of them, but do you think that's
Are you talking about the
the actual?
presentations or
No,
the
no, I'm
actual
talking
meetings?
about the actual meetings.
Okay.
Well, we have to put what we've learned onto paper so they can
Right,
come
so
up
we
with
need.
a plan. So
Right, so,
when do we want to have the plan done by?
well, we said the beginning of next school year.
Okay. So,
But we need to one of the things that we need to do is, once we decide on the priorities and what we are going to actually put in a strategic plan, we want to associate costs with those, so we know
right,
so we're gonna have to give staff time to do that, and then come up with their steps. So, I mean,
I'm thinking of a period, complete the 4 meetings within a period from the middle of January to the middle of March. Does that sound okay?
yeah, I think we might even be able to do it quicker than that.
Well, one reason I would hesitate to say do it quicker is because you want people to have I presume that media may very well be at these events. They'll kind of digest what we said, and maybe they'll pique some people's interest.
Okay.
In terms of coming to subsequent meetings. So I think you want to have the process to be long enough so that the public can be engaged.
Okay. So we'll spread them out between the middle of January to the middle of March.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Unless that puts us up against a deadline that's too tight for getting the plan done. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. Does that sound?
We do it after every,
The off meeting,
off week of
Yeah, we could almost do it the off meeting weeks.
Question, how does that line up with the planning for the 2015-16 school year budget and the things that go into that? Mr. Wilcoxon?
Well, you said we could do January, February.
Yeah, I think that kind of a very rough schedule, we would need to be doing some preliminary budget work in the March timeframe so I think we would have to have a draft budget in March sometime.
So if we could do it January, February,
Okay.
because you're
Yeah.
right, we could probably do it on off Mondays.
Well, I guess the point then is that the budget for 15-16 needs to be really informed by what we do in terms of strategy setting. Otherwise, we've lost a whole year. So we need to have a pretty good cut at this thing sometime by mid-April.
Well, and as I said, if we get these done in February, then if we have to have extra meetings in order to do it, we're just gonna have to do that.
Yeah. So you're comfortable with that timing in terms of the budget and the process?
Yeah, I think we need to have a first cut at the budget in March, and then we talked about having it done before the start of the fiscal year, so the first budget, which would be June then, so that timeframe seems like it would work.
The only other thing, that if you take a look at the timing of some of the commitments we have to make that starts well ahead of the start of the school year, once we make commitments like that, and that was the point I was trying to make a couple of meetings ago about consulting contracts and so forth, which sort of come up during the year. There's no real cutoff date on some of that. So if we don't have a pretty good grasp of what we want to accomplish and what it's going to cost, those things keep rolling. And that's not the right way to do this.
That's why you have priorities. You have to set priorities on what comes first, what we can do this year and what we can.
But if by default we commit to something because the deadline comes up in mid-February and it's a 12-month contract, we're committed. It doesn't matter what we have as a strategy. So we either stop all contracts and start them July 1, or we put some sort of framework together that says you don't do it until we've got the strategy in place. And if people don't like that, well, that's just unfortunate, but that's the way we have to do it. We've got to have a clean cutoff on some of this stuff, because if it keeps rolling over, you're going to get the same results, which is we're spending more than we've got.
Can you give me an example of that? Because I'd kind of like to have an example of what we have where that was rolled over and.
There was a whole list of consulting contracts, which I talked to, and I think Mr. Wilcoxon updated, and some of these came up at various times of the year. They didn't all come up July 1st.
But that list,
There's no way.
the updated version has the new dates on it, and we did consolidate and change some, so that things will come up for July 1 based on that list that was emailed to you and Mr. Bateman.
Okay, well.
And that's why we have a budget review, and we have a certain length of time, like in September, to submit a revised budget.
It was
Is that
like
correct?
the ones for like special ed, and so it was some different contracts, and one was like Guardian Angel. It was ending in like December, so we've changed that, so it will end in June. Once again, so
Right,
we
I
can
know
get
we changed
things.
a lot of that.
We changed those based on the comments that were made at the board meeting.
Okay.
And looking at those contracts.
Good. Well, that's progress. Thanks.
Mr. Wilcoxon?
Well, I think that it is important to look at those things. When you look at the budget, though, 80% are salaries and benefits, and making some earlier decisions in March, I think, would inform that process in the time frame that we needed.
And I think this process will help if we can get these done in January and February. We can start looking at priorities, and as we start looking at what gathering that information, then determining what our final priorities are, then even if we don't have the strategies written, we might be able to look and say, well, we can do this, but we can't do that. I mean, I think we'll be able to do some of that kind of thing early on as we prioritize, so, okay.
I would just add that whatever we put out in, for the public to take a look at, or for anyone to take a look at, that we also include the vision and mission.
Okay.
Because maybe the vision and mission would determine whether some
Right.
things fit or not. Okay.
Okay, so, and I will also try and come up the 1st of November with perhaps a list of entities we want to talk to about, do the presentation to, and then we'll get input from board members, because I'm sure 2 or 3 of us that are putting this together won't think of everyone, and we can finalize that, and then see how soon we can get to some of them, and I'd like to try and do that before before the end of the year, if we can, and depending on how many of them there are, so we've got that done and are ready for the meetings then in January and February, okay?
That's going to be real tight.
Depends on how soon our packet, our report will be ready.
You mean the presentation?
The presentation will
Okay.
be ready.
That's what I was going to say, in parallel with identifying what organizations we want to go talk to, we need to have that presentation put together.
Yep.
So
Okay, we'll
it's
try.
it's a parallel process.
I'll try
not
and
a ser-
work with Dr. Lathan and try and put together some kind of a draft that we will get out to you shortly, as soon as we can. We won't wait till necessarily the next meeting. We'll get it out to you as soon as we can, and then you can look at it and see where we're at.
Yeah, because if we can start getting out in front of some of these organizations as early as middle of November and start working that piece November and December, so that
Okay.
when we hit January, we're ready for these meetings, because we've talked to the organizations we feel we need to get out and talk to, as well as posting what we've got out on our website, put it out in remarkable times, and share that openly with the community so they're prepared to come to these meetings and have a productive session across the board.
Okay. So everybody sort of have an idea of what we're going to do moving forward? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I guess now I need a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of October 14th of 2014.
I would move that motion.
Are there any corrections or comments on those minutes? Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Costa? Aye. Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. We are now at the audience opportunity to address the board. As a reminder, this is a business meeting of the Board of Education held in public, not a public meeting. It is not a question and answer session, and it is not a debate, so there will be no response from the horseshoe unless one of us has comments once the audience comments are completed. Recognizing everyone's First Amendment rights, we still ask that you refrain from speaking about subjects or topics relating directly to district personnel and also those not germane to the Board of Education's authority. We also ask that you refrain from using inappropriate language and keep a civil tone to your remarks. Please also keep in mind that just because something can be said does not necessarily mean that it should be said. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and give your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. No one under 18 years of age may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or a teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. Board members are also available by phone and/or email. This contact information is available on the district website and in the school calendars that parents receive from their school. Ray Lees.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate this opportunity to really thank the district of the Peoria School District 150, the administration and board, and also the staff. Is this on? I guess so. Okay. And particularly board member Rick Lloyd. I'm here as a managing director of representing the Workforce Alliance of Central Illinois, and specifically the Strategic Manufacturing Group. And I've had the privilege over the last several months to work with them in planning a Discover Manufacturing Careers Expo, which took place at Woodruff Career and Technical Center. And it happened last Tuesday and Wednesday. And there were approximately 29 schools from around the region, high schools from around the region that participated, nearly 1,000 students over the course of the 2 days. And I think that in addition to the feedback from the sponsors and supporters that we had from the manufacturers and manufacturing associations and some higher ed institutions that were also present, everyone found that it was a resounding success. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was at Woodruff. We've had it at the Civic Center the last couple of years, and while that's a nice venue, we quite frankly outgrew it, and we decided to split it into 2 days to allow the students to have a little bit more interaction with those in the expo. And that was a good plan, and we couldn't have done it if we had not had it at Woodruff. And we used the Commons area and the gymnasium as well as the auditorium for different parts of the expo there at Woodruff. In the morning, the students visited manufacturing sites and plants around the Peoria area, and then convened at Woodruff for the balance of the affair. So I just want to thank you very much for that, for hosting and allowing us to hold the event at Woodruff. It showed the district well, and I also want to thank Tom Bloomer and his staff for helping us as we were planning the event and moving forward. And depending on what happens, hopefully we'll be able to we'll hold it there next year as well. You certainly saved the activity is does not cost the students or the districts anything. And we raise all the money separately and, by sponsors and other contributors. And so the fact that we had a very friendly accommodation at Woodruff helped from the funding standpoint as well. So anyway, thank you very much. We appreciated your support.
Sharon Cruz.
2 years of data about Manual Academy field trips to Landmark and the Civic Center were requested through the FOIA. 11 events were reported, but invoices were provided for only 2 events. The amount paid was not given for 4 events, and the fund charged was reported for only 1 event. These facts are not secret, so why the unwillingness to reveal the data? I have given you 2 documents, a request for 150 students to attend March Madness in 2013 for $975 charged, I believe, to Title I, and an invoice for 133 students to go to a movie at Landmark and 20 to bowl and eat lunch for a total of $921.50. Perhaps you could shed some light on the legitimacy of spending Title I money on March Madness. The attempt to justify this expense is ludicrous. To learn how to be physically fit and create a plan for healthy living, they will supplement their ongoing unit on basic basketball by attending. Another ridiculous excuse for a trip to the Landmark Theater was that the social group will add value and personal development to the lives of the students, and that this trip will take them out of their immediate community. Taking manual students to Landmark is getting them out of their community? What? My guess is that this trip was also paid by Title I funds. Even if these trips are legitimate uses for Title I money, is there an equal amount of money set aside for Peoria High and the Richwood students for such activities? In 2 years, over 225 manual students had their way paid to a movie. In January 2013, 150 manual students went to Landmark at a cost of $975 plus $550 for 3 buses. No reason given. I certainly do not begrudge giving students these opportunities, but I question using the Ed Fund or Title I to pay for these extras, and I think P cards might be at the root of the problem. 45 years of manual students and faculty came together last week to pay tribute to Wayne McLean, who brought honor to Manual, as did all those who honored him. Thursday, at an ICC banquet honoring over 300 scholarship recipients, the greeting was given by Manual grad Rita Ali, and the main speaker was Manual grad counselor and coach Derek Booth. Reconstruction did great harm to Manual High School, but the relationships forged there are still strong, and its graduates have made their mark. Their stories are avid. The last 2 weeks have brought tears of pride to my eyes. Rest in peace, Wayne McLean. We love you.
Terry Knapp.
I want to talk a little bit about Common Core and the standards that were basically accepted by the state of Illinois because of Race to the Top funds without even being seen. I attended the Gateway Building presentation by this gentleman here in this tape that I'm going to give the secretary, so you'll have this on file if you want to look at Common Core's 70-minute presentation. It's important for you to understand that this gentleman is a college professor, Duke Pesto, Dr. James Milgram, a mathematician from Stanford, and Dr. Sandra Stotsky, an English aficionado from Massachusetts and a stalwart in their education standard system out there, served on this national committee and basically were so upset that they walked off the committee. These people present and are against Common Core for a variety of reasons. I don't know that I accept all of them or any of them, but you need to be educated. I get a kick out of staff development in our district. We pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to go places, and then at the same time, we can't walk across the street to hear these people speak. They were in Peoria, 4 hours at 5 Points in Washington, the Gateway Building, again, as I said, and nobody even attends from District 150, board members or administration. I don't believe. I didn't see anybody there. It doesn't mean they weren't there. 250 people on Saturday night, and 100 people at the Gateway Building a couple Saturdays, well, a month ago Saturdays. It's important that you understand, again, that there are flaws. East Peoria School District, in your folder, the red folder that I gave you, I got this at the presentation. This is East Peoria's proclamation against Common Core. The Board of Education took this stance. I remember back when we had No Child Left Behind, and I stood at this podium and I told you that it would fail. It failed miserably. All it did was create a situation where all schools in Illinois basically were found to be insufficient and failing. That was the ticket. That was to promote charter schools and private schools and so forth. So as you look at this, you need to be aware and you need to make an effort. There will be another video or a DVD of the Mistotsky's presentation at Washington 5 Points that I've already put in for. I got you a copy. I will provide you that copy. I urge you to pay attention to it, and I urge your staff to get educated in it. I mean, these standards are borderline ridiculous and lowering the achievement levels of our students in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Savino Sierra.
Savino Sierra. You people tonight were discussing things that you want to study. I've been on your case for a long time, particularly the discipline in our schools, the dress code that you people haven't taken care of that. I think the president, Madam President, said that you needed more time one time when I was talking on this. But I don't know what you people's problem is. You're way behind time. You were discussing tonight, you took all that time to say you're going to have these get-togethers, you're going to have people write down what they think are priorities. You know, you've been preached to that more than once by me, you know what I mean? But you must think I'm stupid or something because you don't listen, you know. You say you're listening, but we don't get any results when I speak. When Mr. Crawford there was elected president, I offered to meet with him and talk about discipline, you know, but he never did get around to it. And so you want to talk to these organizations and all that, hey, you got to have local people, individuals, you know, with that have a good common sense, you know, not some of these that they're talking for their own, what do you call it, for their own good, you know, trying to promote different things. But you people, you're going to have to, and the administration got to get with it because you're going to go down with one of the, when you guys leave, as one of the poorest outfits we've had in years. And I hate to say it, you know, because I love everybody in this world, but I just don't like some of the ways some people do, you know. Some think they're better than others, smarter than others, what have you, you know what I mean? I speak 2 languages fluent, you know, and I see where you got rid of, or she resigned, the Spanish teacher at Manual. I'd like to know why, you know. Another point is I preach for the fixing up our old schools, you know, and I want to know why that hasn't been done. I I give you people a list, and it's still there. So I hope maybe you'll listen to some people.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra.
Yeah, thank you.
Lyle Applegate.
I'm Lyle Applegate, and tonight I'd like to address the board about the reading program that has been instituted in our school system. All good teachers have Bloom's taxonomy at the very close to their hands in order to develop curriculum and questions and things that will raise the level of the thinking skills among their students. And the tests that are given to the kids by the state, the NWEA, and many others also rely on the Bloom's taxonomy in their forming of questions. And what I'm here to say is that we won't meet needs in our testing if we continue to use reading mastery for our main reading course for primary students. Reading mastery is scripted instruction. And if you have not been in a room where they use reading mastery or scripted instruction, it kind of looks like this. A teacher would say something, and then the kids would say it back. And you point to a word, you say it, the kids say it back. There's very little discussion, and what's really lacking in reading mastery is the comprehension component. So as we get closer to testing time, and that seems to be happening a lot throughout the year, not just the state test, but as we get closer to testing time, the kids aren't ready for those questions that make them think about relationships, make inferences, judgments, compile information, and all the higher level thinking skills. So what's missing in a reading mastery classroom is any dynamic classroom experiences. Those are just non-existent. Literature is gone. We have the reading mastery books and workbooks, but there's no literature. And as much as the word is tossed around, there is no rigor. An interesting little fact is that they brought it into Kenya. I've been reading about reading mastery and other scripted instruction programs. They brought it into Kenya because they were lacking certified teachers. So by using reading mastery and other scripted reading programs, they could hand this to anybody and they could teach a whole class. But even there, they have decided that used on a large scale, it doesn't encourage critical thinking. I urge you to get into the classrooms, see the reading mastery, and think about adding to or taking that away. Thanks.
Thank you. Karen Gast.
Max Edmond. Tell you. Let the kids speak.
Good evening. I'm Karen Gast with K2 Benefits. Tonight, I just simply want to ask that you guys vote in support of renewal option number 5 with HM Life for your reinsurance on the medical and prescription. And I, every year, like to take the opportunity at renewal time to publicly thank all of the people who work very hard to bring the benefits package together. The insurance committee is outstanding. They have excellent attendance. They meet regularly, sometimes frequently, very frequently at times, especially this time of year. And tonight from the committee, we have Tony Strong and Jeff Atkins-Dutro, and from administration, Mr. Mark Wilcoxon and Mike McKenzie, Carla Eamon, and Jerry Hammer. They all have contributed greatly to the success of the committee, and the committee and K-2 benefits and consociate your third-party administrator are all in unanimous support of option 5 for your renewal. And lastly, I did recognize everybody, but Jerry Hammer, I work with her on a regular basis all throughout the year, and I just think it's so important to give her an extra public recognition. She does an outstanding job, and it is truly a pleasure to work with her. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Strong.
Good evening. My name is Tony Strong, a representative of Teachers Union, proud 23-year veteran of District 150 who sits on the District 150 Insurance Committee. This committee consists of 3 teachers reps, 3 administrative representatives, and a rep from every other union in the district, as well as our K-2 brokers. One person we did forget, who I have to give kudos to as well, is Patricia Smith. I can pick up the phone at any time for any of my members that has a problem, and she is a go-to person. Jerry has trained her well. This committee has shown what it truly means to collaborate, respect, and communicate with one another. Serving on this committee has given me valuable knowledge about the insurance process. That said, I am encouraging you to accept this renewal option with the current reinsurance company, HM Life. This committee's effectiveness is because we have worked together. Too often, a union is viewed not in a positive way. And I encourage this district to continue to collaborate, respect, and communicate for the benefit of our district and our children. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say thank you to the Insurance Committee. Years ago, when I was an employee, I served on the Insurance Committee, so I know how many meetings there are when you are putting things out for bid and the decisions you have to make, and it's a lot of work and a lot of time, so that is appreciated. Thank you. Are there board members have any responses to any of the audience comments? Dr. Lathan, did you want to respond to the comments about the Reading Mastery Program?
Yes, part of the statements are incorrect. We use a balanced literacy framework in the district. We have 90 minutes of instruction. Reading mastery is only one component of that instruction. Comprehension skills are taught. Once again, if people are using the program incorrectly, then they might be confused about it. But balanced literacy covers all the areas and all aspects. And once again, we have 90 minutes devoted to that. An SRA group meets normally 20 to 30 minutes of that 90 minutes. And then, Ms. Frost, you had some personal experience with that, so you want to talk about it?
I just, you know, I didn't want to say, but I've learned so much from my 7-year-old grandson about, you know, his experience with reading mastery. I was just so surprised to hear what you're saying, but what the, you know, the speaker was speaking about. But I mean, you know, they're so far ahead of us. I came a long time ago, but I can tell you that he has excelled so much. He really doesn't belong in the second grade, and he reads at like a 12. You know, he reads like a 12-year-old or a 5th grader or a 6th grader, but just the content and the critical thinking that they're doing while doing this homework. I mean, do they all give homework? Because he has so much homework regarding reading mastery. I'm just not sure, you know, I have to go back and check to make sure that I got my facts straight, because what I heard was really disturbing. Thank you.
No, once again, it's balanced literacy, and we've had presentations to the board, and we've worked with principals on how to develop, create their schedules around that. But it's a 90-minute block of instruction, but not just about reading mastery. And also, we do provide training for all of our staff members, so that they are equipped to utilize the program. But it's one component of that piece, of that block.
Okay. Thank you. That brings us to information items tonight. POs over $2,500. Are there any questions for Mr. Wilcoxon tonight? Seeing none. Next is report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and status of such requests.
Since our last board meeting report on October 14th, 2014, we received 6 new Freedom of Information Act requests. Of these new requests, 4 were filled. There were 3 pending requests noted on the October 14th, 2014 board report. 2 were filled. We received 121 requests for this calendar year.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. Mrs. Ross, would you summarize the gifts to the school districts for us tonight?
Sure. There are just a couple of gifts to the school district for this particular evening. They're $1,100, and $1,000 of those dollars were donated by Walmart, and 20 Walmart gift cards. And it looks like they went to Linda Davis of Northmore Primary, and $100 was donated by John Sims to Woodrow Wilson Primary. And the proposed action is that the following donations be accepted and letters of appreciation be sent to donors. As again, that brings us to a yearly total of $16,445.18.
Thank you. The other items on the consent agenda tonight are the payment of bills, the Human Resources Report. The proposed action is the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, resignation, retirement, or discharge of an employee, payment for travel. Number 5 is field trip approval, Richwoods JROTC students. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for JROTC students from Richwoods High School to attend and compete in the annual Pacific High Invitational Drill Meet. Students will travel to Pacific High School in Pacific, Missouri by bus on October 24th, 2014, and return October 25th, 2014. The cost of this trip is covered by the USMC JROTC program operating funds. No child will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Item 6 is another field trip approval for the Richwoods JROTC. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for JROTC students from Richwoods High School to attend and compete in the Purdue University JROTC drill meet. Students will travel to Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana by bus on February 6, 2015 and return February 7, 2015. The cost of this trip is covered by the United States Marine Corps JROTC program operating funds and fundraisers and meals paid for by the cadets. No child will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Item 7 is the school-wide plans of Charter Oak Primary, Franklin Primary, Glen Oak, Harrison, Hines Primary, Jameson, Keller Primary, Lincoln, Northmore Primary, Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, Treewind, Valeska Hinton, Whittier, Woodrow Wilson, Calvin Coolidge, Lindbergh, Mark Bills, Rolling Acres, Sterling, Von Steuben, Manual, and Peoria High. Also included is Richwoods Title I Targeted Assistance Plan. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approves the revised Title I school-wide plans prepared by individual schools, Universal Leadership Team, and submitted by Charter Oak, Franklin, Glen Oak, Harrison, Hines, Jameson, Keller, Lincoln, Northmore, Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, Treewind, Valeska Hinton, Whittier, Woodrow Wilson, Calvin Coolidge, Lindbergh, Mark Bills, Rolling Acres, Sterling, Von Steuben, Manual, and Peoria High. The Board of Education approves the targeted assistance plan for Richwoods High School. Number 8, recommendation for board approval of Rising Star scope of work for District 150. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approves the Rising Star scope of work document prepared and submitted by the district's Universal Leadership Team. This document is a status report on the continuous work being done in school improvement with Race to the Top expectations. The district Universal Leadership Team continually updates information in the Rising Star site. Board approval is required before the scope of work is submitted to the Illinois State Board of Education. Number 9 is the renewal of reinsurance for all employees. The proposed action is that the Board of Education accept renewal option 5 from HM Life for the medical and prescription reinsurance. Number 10 is a contract for the purchase of district-wide copiers. The proposed action is that the Peoria Public School District 150 Board of Education approve a contract for the purchase of district-wide copiers with CDS Office Technologies that includes a 5-year service agreement for those copiers pending board attorney approval. The copiers will be financed with a 5-year lease purchase agreement pending board attorney approval. Item 11 is the action to approve the resignation agreement of Joyce Justice. The proposed action by the Board of Education is that the Board of Education approve the resignation agreement of Joyce Justice effective October 23, 2014. That is the consent agenda for this evening. Are there any items a board member wants pulled for a separate vote? Seeing none, could I have a motion and second on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Are there any questions or comments?
Just some comments.
Dr. Lathan.
If you look at item number 7, as it relates to the school-wide plans for all of our schools, and then a targeted plan for Richwoods. All of our schools are school-wide Title I schools outside of, except for Richwoods. And what each school does with their universal leadership team, which is comprised of the principal and teachers in the building, and also a parent participates on the universal leadership team, is they develop a plan of how they're basically going to not only address student achievement, but also get parents involved. At the next board meeting, board members, you'll be asked to also approve the parent involvement policies, and so they'll be submitted at that time. But each school describes what they're going to use, what data they're going to use to address student achievement. It talks about the meetings for their teams, professional development. The information that you see in front of you goes back several years, because we're updating that information. So you'll see former staff members that possibly are no longer at a particular school, but their names still appear in this particular document. The same as it relates to item number 8, which is our Rising Star Plan. And all of these are inputted through the Illinois State Board of Education system that we use, but we update the work that we're doing in the district. All of our information that we're putting in Rising Star also ties back to the strategic plan. So we've been updating that for a number of years. As items are completed, once again, they still appear, but we can't go back and make any modifications to those plans. And you've heard from the insurance committee, once again, just a very special thank you to not only the insurance committee, but all staff members that work to bring about a sensible solution for all staff in the district as it relates to the insurance.
Just one real quick question. When the insurance, does it go out for a bid type of activity?
Yes, in your packet, I believe you had information, and Karen, if we're going to come back up, in your packet, I believe you had information on the different options. Oh, okay,
yeah, I just
yes.
wanted to ask that question publicly so that people know that it does go through a bidding process and to make sure it stays competitive.
Yes, oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thoroughly vetted.
Thank you.
And
While you're there,
Karen.
well, I guess I'm kind of confused. It goes through a bidding process, but we've already chosen a company, and this company will then try to find the best. I really want to know how major differences between what we have now and what the proposed is.
Well, this is just for your reinsurance, and what the reinsurance does is you guys are currently self-funded, so you pay your claims, or you have a third-party administrator pay the claims up to a certain dollar threshold.
Right.
And then anything after that is covered by a reinsurance company.
Right.
So as your brokers, what we do is we take your current claim data, your historical claim data, and a myriad of other pieces. We present to the reinsurance companies what your network discount contracts are on the pharmaceutical side with doctors, hospitals, other ancillary providers. And we put all of it together, send it out, we blanket the marketplace, and then we get quotes back. And we ask for multiple options. And we ask them to make, so that way we can make sure that everything's matched line by line, and we're very clear on what the requirements are of each option that we'd like to see. And so then they come back and they give us the pricing, and then we're able to go through and
I just want
decide.
to make sure that, our staff are not like in culture shock or in shock when, this is all over, because we've been through this quite a number of years. And sometimes it's up, and sometimes it's down. So
Right,
I just wasn't sure how you
this is
determine
a more behind-the-scenes layer of insurance that you guys have, that the reinsurance itself doesn't really affect employees and their experience. You have your third-party administrator that you accepted last year, and we have a multi-year agreement with them.
Right.
Your agreements with the hospitals, with the pharmaceutical benefit manager, et cetera. So this is just a layer of protection for your catastrophic claims.
that. Okay.
And then also we want to
Thank you.
discuss, thank you, Karen, discuss the process as it relates to the copier bid process.
This was a fairly long procurement
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before we leave the subject of insurance, I was looking at the documents, excuse me here. The budget that is shown is the budget for our total expense. That's on this document? And I'm just trying to get a sense of it, because this is a big item in our budget. So I'm looking at the page that.
This one?
The rate summary, yeah, that.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Are you in the center under the 2014 budget?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, that 19.5 million, where we came up with that, and that's just your estimate because your census changes, the number of employees and families, et cetera, change every month. So what we did is we annualized what we project your census to be, and it comes out to approximately 19.5 million. So the employee share and the district share combined with where we had set your premiums is at approximately 19.5 million for the plan year of January 1, 2014 through the end of this calendar year. Then, if just working down that sheet, do you want me to work down the sheet and how we derive at the information?
Would you please?
Yes, of course. Okay, so if you look at the very top, you can see there are two different plans. There's Plan A and Plan B. Plan B is the health savings account eligible plan. Plan A is the plan that most employees are in, and that's just your typical PPO plan. And then underneath is just the COBRA rates, which adds 2%. Or a couple percent to that. So then when we look at 2015, now I'm back in the center right underneath that 2014 budget. We intentionally last year requested that you guys budget more than your worst case scenario. And the reason for that is when you're self-funded, you always want to build a reserve. If something were to ever happen and you were to decide, oh, we're going to go back fully insured again, which I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball. There may be a day that we have that. We need to make sure that you guys have a reserve so you could pay any run-out claims, all right? So the first few years, you want to work to increase that reserve. So your actual amount that your projected costs are going to be, if you go down towards the bottom under 2015 year-end surplus estimate,
Right.
For 2014, we actually project your costs to be at about 18.15 million, but we have, if you're funding appropriately, you should have funded about 19.5 million, which will leave you with a 2014 reserve of approximately $1,348,000. Okay? So then, medical trend, PricewaterhouseCoopers comes out and gives medical trend. They're generally saying about 6.8%, but for downstate Illinois, we're saying 6.5. And that's just not changing any benefits, doing anything like that, just simply what we expect medical inflation trend to be, okay? So 6.5 for a self-funded plan in this area. So if we take your projected budget of 2015, we would take and add 6.5% onto that. But the insurance committee has thoroughly reviewed very detailed claims dollar analysis, and they have decided to make some plan changes. And those plan changes are listed out under less projected plan savings, design savings. What we're able to do, because you're self-funded, is we can actually pull out each one of these items and say, what dollar amount would this actually have saved the district using your data and only your data through your current year? So if it was based on 8 months, we would take the dollars that we know for those 8 months, divide it by 8, multiply it by 12, okay? And so we have come up with the changes that they're going to make will yield, would have yielded if it was done for 2014, so we can anticipate it would be similar, $579,744.37. So that brings down that 6.5% renewal increase as far as what you're going to pass on to your employees. So this is your reinsurance, this is all your claims funding, this is everything together. Your fees under the Affordable Care Act, there are fees that you have to pay. So we've lumped all of that in. And then we're saying that that would actually bring that down to about a 3.53% increase because of the changes that they're voluntarily making to the plan of benefits to help reduce that total exposure, and that total amount. So that brings you down to 20,187,000 approximately.
Okay, well, I guess a couple things. One is, I wanted to make sure that number became public because it wasn't on the agenda here.
Okay.
So the total costs this year is projected at around $18.15 million for this expense.
Correct.
The district, which is self-funded.
Correct.
And we have budgeted 19.5, so that means there's a $1.348 million estimated surplus.
Correct.
And next year, the projected cost is $19,464,000, and there's projected surplus based on a higher funding of $722,000.
Exactly.
So, number one is, I want to make sure people understand how big that number is. That's a huge number. That's more than 10% of our total budget on an annual basis, number one. Number two is, I understand the need for reserves, but considering how tight things are going to be this year, and we're forecasting a, $10 million plus deficit, can we afford to put close to $750,000 reserves this year against that and long-term surplus? Is that a cash cost that we have to take into account? That's cash out the door, right?
Do you want to talk about the requirements of a reserve?
Let's see, it is recommended that what you would do is that you would want, by the end of 3 to 4 years, about 3 months in reserve. So that way, if you ever terminate the policy, you have that in the fund to pay out your run-out claims. So
That'd be
this
about $5
puts
million.
approximately, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to feel a little bit more comfortable when I see this in a couple of years. I don't foresee in any time in the near future for you guys to be moving to a fully insured plan. I mean, just the cost, the additional fees in under the Affordable Care Act are hefty. So when you go fully insured versus self-funded, you still have fees under both, but there are more under a fully insured plan. So just being self-funded is saving you. And obviously, I mean, this is saving you, $1.3 million approximately this year. So we always recommend that you do work to build that. Yes, that's very important.
Where does that reserve sit? What form is that held in?
The other thing I want to mention too is that when we're self-funded, this is the first year of being self-funded again, right?
Yes.
So we started out this year with 0 reserves.
Exactly.
And the problem is with self-funded, it only takes 2 or 3 very large claims that don't quite meet the reinsurance that can wipe that reserve out like that.
Right.
And that's why you have to, I understand, can we afford to have $750,000 in reserve, put in the reserves, but can we afford not to?
Well, what's the risk of it? That's the question. That's
Well-
what you're trying to, but
The risk is at the end, but I mean, the way the accounting works, I mean, the money just never leaves the building until claims are paid. So the money gets transferred in accounting entry from Fund 10 or Fund 20, whatever, wherever the expenses are for the employees, and moved as a revenue into Fund 97. And then that money sits in the commingled Commerce bank account until it is needed to pay claims. So every week, the consociate, the TPA, sends us a list of checks, and we literally then move it into a bank account to pay all those checks.
so that reserve is held in our own,
It sits in our.
it's on our
Commerce
balance
Bank.
sheet then?
Yes, it sits in our commingled Commerce Bank checking account,
Okay.
or money market account, wherever we have it sitting. But it's in the district bank account. We earn interest on that and everything. So.
Well, I just appreciate the detailed explanation. I know that may be a little more than people want, but when you're talking about a number that's got $20 million, that's a lot of money. And we need to be asking questions about these things, and I understand the need, and there's a risk here that we take, and when we're self-insured or self-funded. But since it appears that we hold the cash, I guess that's better than it going someplace else, and that wasn't clear from this exhibit, so.
Well, initially, we were looking at a 6.5% increase for this year, and we
Okay.
didn't do the whole 6.5%, we did the 3.43.
And also, this is 2 different years. I mean, you know, we have a fiscal year and a calendar. The insurance is under a calendar year, and
Right.
so the 3.53, you know, it's only 1.7 some percent for our calendar year for this, because it's only the second half. But regardless, it's.
Okay, well, thank you very much, I appreciate that, and your forbearance on this.
Mrs. Ross?
Since you brought that up, I'd kind of like for, if you don't mind, Carla, if you would give, we have history when it comes to
Don't go anywhere.
this self-funded program and non-self-funded. And you remember when we had before we got self-funded, we had the other one, and there was a reserve there, and what a fiasco that was to distribute that back to the members. So I don't see us going, I don't know whether we'll be going back or not, but could you explain a little bit about the difference in the two?
Well, I think what you're referring to is when we raised premiums at a certain point in history, and then we were told because it didn't go through the committee, I think that's what you're talking about, didn't go through the committee, but that's why we now have a fund that had to be created from that. And I don't know
Well,
if you or not
but before
that.
we became self-funded, we were in a different type of insurance. This is our second year, right, of being self-funded.
It was the
Next year
second
will be
time
Second
of being
time.
self-funded. We
Right.
were self-funded, then went
Went
to a
off.
company
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what
we're
I'm
back.
saying. When we went to the company before, there was a big mix-up with monies that we had in that account.
The reserves that we
The
had
reserves
left
that we had in
when
that
we were
account.
self-funded, and then when we went to the full insured, there was and I don't know the details, but I remember
Well,
there was
maybe she
a,
doesn't remember the
There was
details,
a-
but it was,
Jerry, do you know?
do you remember, Jerry?
what she's talking about?
no, Jerry was in payroll.
We went from self-funded to fully funded, and there was the lawsuit. because
Right, we had several.
Premiums too high,
Mhm.
and that refund is sitting in an account from the lawsuit that's still sitting out there, correct, Carla?
Right.
It's on account.
Thinking that she
That was
may
from the
have-
lawsuit from the premiums being raised so high, when Mr. Cahill was here and that
Right.
lawsuit came out.
That's when we took all that money out of reserves and put it, okay,
Yeah, and that money's still sitting there from that lawsuit, yes.
okay. So that money is still sitting there.
Sitting there as a reserve.
Okay,
So that's a separate piece.
okay. So that's reserve that we have, though. Do we know what we're gonna do with that reserve?
We're holding on to it.
Is it $12 million? I
No.
was gonna say we could use it for the deficit.
Is the reserve announced here, is that a legal requirement or just a prudent requirement?
It is a prudent requirement.
Okay.
For sure. Yes, I do not believe that that is a legal requirement. I can double check, and if it is, I can get back to
I
you.
just know that there are reserve requirements for self-funded plans, and I was just wondering if there is one for us that.
No, you guys, I mean, it's,
Sounds like that.
you guys can do what you want, but it is definitely wise. And you guys do have the money here. You know, our recommendation from last year, I think, holds true. It's right here. The proof is, making the decision that you guys made, it yielded you guys a reserve of over 1.3 million.
I just know from the last time we were self-funded, when I was working, there were many times it was a good thing we had that reserve, because we
Yeah.
had a couple of transplants and different things like that, and until you hit the reinsurance level, that all comes out of, and a person's premiums that they pay in a year is certainly not going to pay for those kinds of costs.
Right. It's very important that you guys fund it, for sure. I mean, you want to make sure that you protect the financial integrity of your self-funded plan, of your health insurance plan. And so we will always recommend that you guys fund that as recommended.
Mr. Bateman?
Yeah, 2 questions. As we talk about it, the Affordable Care Act and looking ahead, when the employer mandates come online, how does this align us with that? Is there any risk in there, or are we okay?
You guys are compliant. We have done thorough legal review we have reviewed with multiple entities, and we have made all of the plan adjustments into place to make sure you were compliant. The biggest compliance issues were for 2014 for your plan doc. And then as we move forward into 2015, and you're now going to be affected by pay or play, that aspect of the Affordable Care Act, we have had detailed conversations with the district, and they know if they have any questions anytime, they can contact us. And then we also have an attorney that we use that's an ERISA attorney, so handles this type of self-funded plans all the time. That's basically all he does.
Okay, and then the next step beyond that is when they start looking at plans and consider some of these, depending on what you're providing in terms of coverage as Cadillac plans, is there any risk of this plan being considered one of those and incurring various penalties or taxes as a result?
Okay, the Cadillac plans, that is the information about Cadillac plans, that's going to be effective in 2018. So we have
I know,
a few
I'm just
years.
looking ahead.
Yep. At this point, I think you guys are going to be okay. There are still some final pieces from Health and Human Services that have not been finalized. So until I see final regulation, I'm not willing to state. But at this point, I believe that you guys are going to be okay on that.
Can you also tell the difference of our penalties from if we would have stayed fully funded compared to what we are self-funded?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was off the top of my head. I didn't bring that piece with me. It was over 3 years, because it's technically for 3 years that there's.
This is with a private company, correct?
Well, this is
Full
just to
fund.
be
Yeah, fully funded.
fully funded, right, to be fully funded. I believe for every, it was $600 and some $1,000 a year, just in taxes that go to help fund the exchanges. That is over and above the Peoria and transitional reinsurance fees that you're already paying. So that adds up quite a bit. So just in those taxes, by being self-funded, you're saving about $600,000 a year right now.
Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now will you do the copier process?
Oh, sure. This procurement has been going on for a couple months. We initially set up a committee that developed an RFP. We publicly advertised this in the Peoria Journal-Star, on our website, and we contacted all the local vendors to make sure they were well aware of this procurement. We had 8 firms bid on this project. One missed the deadline for submission, 2 submitted improper submission, so we actually reviewed 5. They sent technical and costing proposals. We reviewed those separately, the committee. There were 2 finalists that their technical proposals were the best, and their cost was very close, and also the lowest cost. So we brought those 2 firms in for best and final presentation and financial offer. They both actually lowered their cost with the opportunity to do a best and final. So then we expanded the committee to include the Copy Center and a few others. There were 7 of us then. We interviewed the firms, and again, the committee, this was a unanimous decision to go with, recommend CDS to the board. It will put new copiers in all the schools, all the administrative offices. There'll be color machines in each school. We plan to implement a system to actually track copies by individual, but that will be down the road. So the staff is recommending that you approve this project, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have. Oh, a little bit on implementation. If the board approves this tonight, we'll be in contact with CDS tonight. They will get the release of these machines from Conica Minolta then with board approval. We would have the copy center done first. They will install the new machines November. Pardon me?
Print shop.
Oh, print shop.
That's how I know it, is a print shop.
Use
that college term.
Copy center. That would be November 5th, and they would start rolling the machines out to the schools right after that, and implement about or install about 10 machines per day, and they think they will be done by the end of November.
I do have a question. Just a quick question. I know that we bought new copiers over, some every year. If we're going to replace those with new ones, what are our plans for the ones that because I know we buy them every year.
Most of the copy machines at the district are 10 years old. There are a few random ones that are.
That's what I meant, the random ones, I remember.
Yeah, there's only about 2 or 3 that are in the district, and those are marginal. So it's best just to replace all of them at once instead of doing all of the schools except 2 schools, and they keep their old copiers. So we thought it was best to do this where we have very aggressive pricing from Konica Minolta, and it's best to just put all new machines in all the schools. When we were doing reference checks, most schools and colleges replace their machines every 5 years. Some do 3 years. Ours are 10 years old. So.
I bet if we did the research, it would be so.
Yeah, so as I read this, the total cost per year is $320,000 approximately for that.
With the service and the lease purchase.
Service
right.
and the lease purchase. That does not include supplies, toner, or paper?
It does include that.
Does include toner?
That's part of the service cost.
Does it include paper?
No.
Not paper. Okay, well, I guess the reason I asked that question is that the discussion talks about us generating in excess of 30 million copies. We've got 2,700 employees, that's 11,000 some copies per employee. I'm sure there's some people that need that, but that seems to me, I don't know. Is there a standard for that? And that is a stunning number per employee. I mean, is that a realistic number?
Well,
Is the availability of copiers being abused? That's the sort of question.
Well, it's one of the reasons we really want to do the tracking, and once that's installed, we'll be able to do that a little bit better. But the other measure probably is the number of copies per student, and so if you divide the 30 million by 14,000 students, you get a much smaller number.
Okay, you get 2,000 per student.
Well,
somewhere along the way, we need to think about that.
Well, it's one of the reasons we want to track this, and
Yeah.
we will have the technology to do that. Not initially, but after we get the machines in, that's what we will.
So the next question is.
If you think about how teachers, and I don't know if that's way high or not, but if you think about how teachers used to use mimeographs and all that, especially at the lower grade level for worksheets and all that, I mean, we aren't purchasing a lot of the consumables anymore. I think we're reproducing a lot of the consumables anymore because it's less expensive to copy them than it is to purchase the consumables. So it may not be that far off. I don't know that it's that far off.
Then that's a good point. Then there's an offset to this that really isn't reflected in this discussion, that we are saving money because of other things that we aren't purchasing, as long as we're not violating copyrights.
Right.
Which we obviously aren't. And then the next question is, are any of these are capable of linking, internet linked? Many of these copiers now are in effect scanners. Are these internet linkable?
They're all multifunctional.
All multifunctional,
Yes.
then. Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Bateman.
And then as we run this contract and people use these wear-out replacements, is that all factored into this, or?
Well, we would buy these outright with a lease purchase. So the idea is that we would have these machines for 5 years. Then we will make some decision. If we're having problems with these machines, then we can do, like most folks do, is replace them after 5 years. But we have a service agreement, so CDS will take care of these machines and make sure they're serviced and operational. And the contract, our RFP and the contract had very specific service requirements. The amount of time they can be down, how long they have to be here. So those will be in the contract too. So they should be good for 5 years, and then we'll make some decision after that.
Yeah, one of the benefits of that internet-type linkage is that a unit should notify somebody centrally that it's a problem.
It does. CDS monitors these remotely, and they can actually occasionally tell when a machine is broken before the operator even knows it.
Good.
Any other questions or comments on any other items on the consent agenda? Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
That brings us to the deliberation agenda. Discipline.
The review of suspensions listed on the report dated October 27, 2014 be approved as presented.
Second?
Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Item 13, revocation of board probation. Proposed action is that the revocation of board probation listed on the report dated October 27, 2014 be approved as presented.
Second?
Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Item 14, expulsions. Proposed action is that the expulsions listed on the report dated October 27, 2014 be approved as presented.
Second?
Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Students expelled by the board are referred to by number, therefore ensuring privacy. Board action concerning the students has been decided in executive session.
Thank you. Are there any presentations and suggestions by board members tonight? Mr. Bateman?
For Dr. Lathan, could you update us on where we're at with the Quest Charter renewal, please?
So we are in the process of gathering some additional data based on some questions from different board members. A letter was sent out to Quest notifying them that it's our goal to have a response to their request by November 24th. So between now and November 24th, we'll gather information and share that and provide a recommendation to the board, and then send information back to Quest.
Mr. Cloyd?
Just a question of Mr. Wilcoxon, an update on the Peoria High Athletic Field construction, if you could, please.
Sure. They've been working on the road from North Street to the buildings and grounds. It looks like it's about done. They've got the posts up for the scoreboard. They keep promising they're going to start sodding the fields, but I drove by there today and they're close, but they haven't started sodding the fields yet. They were delivering the light poles today, so the light poles will be going up soon. So they're moving forward. They've had some good weather the last several weeks. So.
Thank you.
What is the projected date?
Well, we hope to be using the fields in the spring. We'll see how the sod works out.
Maybe my only concern is it too cold to sod at this point?
They tell us it's not.
Okay, just as long as they tell us that if it doesn't work, then they have to.
Yeah.
More sod in spring.
But the forecast is getting cold, so.
It is getting cold.
Yeah.
Put it this way, I wouldn't put grass seed down right now.
Yeah.
I know sod's a little bit,
Right.
hardier and you can go later with it, but.
Mr. Bateman?
Last thing, I'd like to wish Peoria High and Richwoods High Schools good luck in their football games, playoff games this weekend. And kind of on a follow-up with that, is we're coming to the end of the football season. I wondered if we could get an update from Accelerated Rehabilitation on the number of concussions or other injuries that we've seen during the season, and share that with the board. Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Also with that CD,